Party people, what's happening with you? It's your boy Grape, live and in the flesh, and we were doing a little bit different, today. Man, we got a nice interview. Y'all know we chalking it up to building happy, healthy, whole, and biblical relationships around here. And I'm excited for this particular guest. You guys are familiar with him on this channel. Shared quite a few clips from previous streams that we've done together. This is a pastor, life coach, friend, mentor, brother, all of the above. Amazing husband, amazing father. And just an amazing individual all around, man of God, who I have been so privileged to meet and journey along through the last about 3 years or so. And it's been an amazing time. It's definitely been impactful for my life. And I know you guys are going to be enriched by this conversation because we're talking everything: marriage, dating climate, and how you
Wow.
can better benefit from navigating from such a mess that's out here in this atrocity in 2023 and so on. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the son, present to others, the one and only Demetrius Colbert, aka PD. How you living, man?
Man, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's an honor to be with you. As always, we talk quite often, but anytime we get together, it's always an adventurous time. It's always blessed. God is always in the middle of it, and there's always some purpose that we're trying to reach some end. So I expect that on today. But it's always an honor, man, to have anybody ask you to share your thoughts and your opinions, on such a, stage where strangers and people who will also have the opportunity to see it. So thank you, man, for inviting me on.
Absolutely, man. It's always a pleasure. So we're just gonna dive right into it, y'all, because there's a lot to discuss. And of course, as always, I did not mention this, but I think it is something to be said. We are in the midst of an individual who's been married for 31 years. Okay, 31 years now.
Yeah,
That might sound crazy to some of you, maybe from
yeah,
backgrounds you come from, and just being in culture and where we're surrounded by so much talk, conversations on what marriage is supposed to be, what it's
right.
not. And man, it's a blessing to be in the midst of that. And so I kind of want to start there with you, PD, man. Tell us a little bit about your origin story, man, with your marriage and being with this one wonderful woman who is your wife for the last 31 years.
Yeah. So when you say origin, how we got together, is
How
that
we
what
got
you?
together. Yeah, talk about a little bit of how you got together. What were kind of the context, circumstances
Yeah.
in between all of that, man? I'd love to
So
know.
interesting. Glad you asked. Hang on to your seatbelt while I answer this question. So I was actually living with a young lady um, who I had no intentions on going further with. And I already had a daughter with this young lady, truthfully. I had a daughter with her. And, but I was never going to get married to her. And frankly, sad to say, I cared about her, but I did not love her. Um, and neither was I following in the Lord's footsteps regarding this relationship. And so I was kind of worn out by the relationship, to be quite honest with you. And I had just kind of, we were just kind of there, just kind of making ends meet. We lived in the same place. I was 20, and I was just trying to make ends meet, do what I want to do. But I was miserable. She was miserable. And the only thing we had in common was our daughter. And so, with that being said, um, I had shortly thereafter coming to this realization, like, this is never going to be something that I want. This isn't going to be something I want to do. What I ended up doing, Sean, was, um, man, I was driving home from work one day. Actually, I got off work one day and I needed to pick up something from my grandmother who lived close. And I was driving to her house. And as I was driving to her house, um, I had on some NWA because Ice Cube was my dude. So I was listening to some NWA, and I really felt this conviction, like God said, turn this down, turn this off. Actually, I turned it off, pulled it to my grandmother's house, and I sat out in the car, and I really felt like I had a genuine, true encounter with God in that moment, where God was like, you can keep running from me, or you can keep coming to me. And that's the reason why. So I'm glad. That's why I said I'm glad you asked this question so I could set it up like that, because I was weary of being in this relationship. I did not want to be in this relationship. I did not want to be connected to her in any way, shape, or form. I was done. She was done. And I was just ready to move on. And so this encounter happened that Sunday. I ended up returning back to the roots that I grew up in, which was my faith, and having a genuine encounter with God in terms of really walking into salvation space. So I set that up to tell you that a friend of mine, a couple of weeks later, said to me, "Hey, man, I like this girl. She will not go out with me unless we go on a double date with her roommate."
Mm.
They were both students at the University of Arizona. And I said, man, that's the last thing I want to do. I was sick of my situation. I was like, that I don't want to go entertain. I don't want to go sit and be a talking head for anybody. But I went anyway. And when I walked in and sat on the couch, and I saw this young lady, I mean, something just leapt in me. I'm not going to tell you my spirit. I'm not going to say that because I'll be lying on Jesus. But something just leapt in me. Like, I was like, whoa. And it wasn't because I was just the way that she looked. She was beautiful, but it wasn't just because of the way that she looked. It was something, man, that just, I don't know. It just ministered to me, man. Like it hit me like, I don't know. But little did I know she was feeling the same way. Like, here's the crazy part. I didn't find this out until a year later, because we went on this double date, right? And we sat there, and that was over. After that was over, I worked for a company where I was the service provider. So that meant I went into customers' homes. So to make sure that they were happy with our products and different things along those lines, it was a furniture company, largest one in one of the largest ones in Arizona. And so I was the service director there. And so I went in to these people's homes, made sure their stuff was there. I was on a service call. I was driving back from a service call, and I had to stop and get gas because I was in the service van. So I stopped to get gas 20 miles from where my work is. She is at this same gas station. Now, I haven't seen her since this night. You have to understand. I haven't seen her since this night at all.
It's been a whole year.
It's been a whole year. A whole year has passed. And she was in front of me. I pulled up behind her, and I was just getting gas. And I'm looking at this girl, and this girl keeps looking at me. And I'm like, why like, I know her. Now, you have to understand, I didn't have a really good past. So I was thinking this could be somebody, right? That's, not right. In a good situation right here, right? Yeah. So, but we both, because at the time they didn't have the pay at the pump stuff. You had to go inside to pay. And so we both started walking to go inside and pay at the pump. And, I didn't want to hit her with the proverbial, do I know you? But we both kind of looked at each other, and we were like, and we were like, yeah, this is so, a really, really long story short, it was Christmas time, because that's when I had met her a year earlier. She was a senior at the University of Arizona. I was just working, and she was just about to go back home to Wisconsin on break. And like 2 days later, she was going to go. And we exchanged numbers. She's like, yeah, I'll give you a call when I get back. She ended up calling me at my office like the next day, back in my office. And we started talking, and 8 months later, which was 33 years ago total, almost 33 years ago, I should say, total, we got married. 8 months after that encounter at the gas station, we got married.
Wow.
Yes.
That is beautiful.
True story.
That is beautiful. So let me try to wrap that up in just a concise way. So you've had a past on you. You have a child coming into this, right? You don't have two children coming into this. You don't have a degree. You're working. Right. And she is finishing college. Okay.
Top of her class. Magna cum laude.
Magnum cum laude. Okay. And so it seems like there's just off that alone, there's two different worlds, right? There's
There's,
two different spaces coming together.
and we haven't talked about this either. So she is of Polish descent, and
Yeah.
I'm obviously African American.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all kinds of
All
differences
kinds of
that
things.
are going
Yeah.
on here, right? She has a Catholic background. I have a non-denomination, well, Baptist background in the Christian faith. Hers is a Catholic background in the faith. So we have
Wow.
a whole bunch of things that
Yeah.
aren't matching exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and so I'm just that I think that strikes me because in today's climate and culture, we have so many different standards and expectations and different flavors that people are so perversely sharing on social media of what they want to expect to have out of somebody, and this perspective of even to the degree of women not dating down, right? And so this idea that hey, women want to find someone who has similar, if not better, than what they have in order to consider such an individual a good mate. But it seems like in your perspective, that's not the case. Tell me why.
Because it was 33 years ago. So times have changed for you guys.
Yeah.
Times have changed for I'm not sure I would survive the dating culture today without just being absolutely positively frustrated. I
Yeah.
really mean that. I'm not sure that I would be successful in the spaces today. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. There's a lot of things that you have to try to figure out. There's this new thing that's called ghosting that you guys do where people never talk to you again. In this
Yeah.
particular instance, you were just told whether they liked you or not, and whether there was something that was there or not. People just said it. Hey, this isn't going to go any further, but thank you. I enjoyed my time type of deal. It's different. Even one of the other different things is that my wife comes from a family of millionaires. I came from food stamps, welfare, Section 8, and broken home government cheese, uh, government assistance for medical, for everything, everything. Even our home was government assisted property we lived in. So we were so different on so many different levels. The only thing that could make sense was our faith that we both had for God.
Yeah. So faith, same values,
Same values.
same foundation. And so that is what is attributed then to what even created some type of connection in that space. What really
So that's good. So let's do
yeah.
this too. Let's say this too. We also were highly attracted to one another,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there was that very high attraction level. And again, she tells me this a year later. I mean, we both literally had the same feelings when we walked in. I walked in and I saw her and I was like, yo, like
That's it.
I was like, she bad. I was
That's
like,
it.
she bad.
Uh-huh.
Right. So she was a gymnast. She was in shape. She just, just man, she was just beautiful. And she had this calm demeanor about herself, which I like in women. I'm not necessarily one for the more maybe louder, perhaps maybe aggressive. I like very feminine uh, women. I like for women to live in and be up in their femininity. And she was that for sure, man. She expressed that. She smelled good. She looked good. I was like,
That was
yes.
it.
And it was. She felt the same for me. She to this day could tell you that she remembers. You guys probably don't remember these because they don't. I don't even know if they make this stuff anymore. Tried to make them come back with all the shoes that are out there, but she could tell you I had on these pump
Oh, the pump.
Reeboks
Yeah.
that you used to have, right? So they pumped, and I had on this pink and gray
Wow.
um, Puma sweatsuit because that's all I
Swaggy.
wore back. Yeah, she was
Swaggy.
like, she remembered it. She's like, I remember that. She said, I saw you in that, and she was like, "There's a beautiful man," right? So it was kind of one of those things right there. We both shared those feelings, not even knowing that we both ultimately also shared the same faith.
Yeah, and so that ultimately came into the conversation, and it sounds like it was just, it was there was some, it was deeper than skin. right? Of
It was,
course, it was beauty there, and that's involved. And it was also what you saw in one another, despite potential backgrounds and differences.
I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you, but neither of us were looking for this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing too. That's probably
Mm-hmm.
one of the most important elements of this. Neither of us, I didn't even want to go to that. I
Wow.
didn't even want to be at that. I
Yeah.
was doing a favor for my guy because he wanted to go on the day. I was just doing a favor for my guy.
Yeah.
That was it. I didn't even want to be at that. I was looking forward to actually having some time to myself and not even worrying about any of that at all
No.
in any way, shape, or form.
No, that's good. That's good. So, and we're going to come back around and really kind of hammer home a lot of things that we want people to get out of even those situations. But
Yeah.
sharing that is huge. Because I just think some people just need to benefit from hearing things like that. You know,
Yeah.
the origin stories, how things started. Because it just there's so much just heavy, unrealistic expectations for men and women all together in this climate, and people to have it all together, be in a certain place before all these things. And so to hear that story is very, very refreshing in so many ways. So let me ask you this as well. Oh, I got my notes here while I
Yeah.
have it, right. So being in this marriage and 31 years, 33 years of knowing her and being in relationship, there's so many people who desire to have something of that sort in their own lives,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing marriage, and maybe they're single, and they got some hope. They got a sliver of hope out here for whatever is left. What do you think, from your experience, singles should expect coming into a marriage, seeking and desiring a marriage?
When you say expect, um, just again, I just want to make sure I'm answering exactly what you want me to answer
Yeah,
about being married
yeah. So
or the dating process.
what should they expect about being married?
Yeah,
Because that's a huge deal,
that's a
right?
great question.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a phenomenal question. I wish more people asked. To be honest with you, Greg,
yeah.
you shouldn't expect all the stuff that you dreamed up in your mind
Mm,
because it's not true. It's
yeah.
not true. It's not real. It's not realistic. Um, Most of your marriage is going to be somewhat paradoxical. You're going to experience paradox in your relationship. You're going to go through a range of feelings and emotions and thoughts, and you're going to spend a lot of time um, coming back to things that you said you would never do because of who you are and what you stand for and what your expectations are and the books you read and the people who told you, especially now with all the information out there, all the people that you see from the TikTokers, the YouTubers, and all the information out there, and the tins and the blue pills, the red pills, and all this other kind of good stuff. None of that stuff actually occurs in marriages. It just doesn't occur in a marriage. This is completely different. This is you. It's sacrificial. Marriage is sacrificial. It's apologetic in the sense that you recognize that you are working on being selfless and not selfish in that relationship. You are all of these things are put to the absolute test, man, because of it. Now let me clarify that is, Sean, if they want to have that relationship and they want to have that marriage and they say, this is my person, this is what I want to do. This idea of I'm just good, it's just good, and it's going to be this and it's going to be that. The pictures. Let me stop and say the pictures that you see on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, TikTok, and they go, "This is my person," and they're standing out in the middle of a field somewhere, and there's lilies and sunflowers, and the sun is setting in the back, and they have their dog Scruffy, and they're like, "This is my forever person." Oh my God! Listen, man, no, that Monday through Sunday in your house is not that moment. That's a moment, and I hope that you can build there. and have that be true for you in a moment, but marriage is a working relationship. It is a working, constantly weaving, constantly moving, evolving process between two people with two different histories who said, let's come together and make our own history. Let's deal with our own things that we came through. And you start to discover and find capacity, or you reject that capacity and you keep moving on from relationship to relationship to relationship, hoping that someone else will have the capacity while you don't change at all. So there's a couple of different ways to see it, but marriage is about commitment to the end. This is not my saying, but it's worth saying. The wedding is not a miracle. Staying married is. Staying married is a miracle. The easiest thing to do is stand up in front of people and get married. The hardest thing for us to recognize in that marriage process, though, Sean, is that we have not understood that we told witnesses, we told physical witnesses. That's why we invite people to our weddings. The minister and before God. And we made a commitment before all of them, for richer or for poor. I even want you to think about it now. Today, everybody's trying to remove the traditional vows out of their vows because they don't want to be able to have them, because marriage is about serving one another, not about an Instagram post that's for a moment, that most people, if they really look deep enough, will find that it is not true. So marriage is a work, man, in process all the time. It's ever evolving. And I can tell you, I love my wife more today than I did the day that I got married to her.
Wow. No, that's beautiful. So what do you say to the man who says, yeah, I hear all of that, and it sounds like something that deep down I may actually want, but I struggle with jumping through the hoops of thinking about all that a man is at risk of losing. It doesn't seem as if marriage in today's context is beneficial for the man. And of course, you'll hear examples as divorce and what takes place in divorce separations. 50%, all the things are split down the middle, or majority goes to the woman instead of the man. What are encouraging thoughts or something that you would share to a man who has that approach and outlook on marriage, but may in some way, shape, or form deep down want to be married to some capacity?
Yeah. Another good question. First, let me say that there's no guarantees. I don't care who you marry. There's no guarantees, because somebody can show you one thing today and then be another person the next day. Here's what I will tell you. I think that you have a better chance of being successfully married when you do marry someone who does, in fact, share your value system, right? You guys are on the same page, the same trajectory for where you're going, what you're doing. Your household is made up of the same faith. I also would say that when you have someone who is your friend, see, I got some buddies, I got some homeboys, if you will. Today it's my guy. For back in the day, it's just your homeboy. So that are friends of mine. We're really good friends, but nobody's my best friend except for my wife. My wife is my best friend. And I think that if you can make your spouse your best friend, that the person who, no matter what, she should be your ride or die, sir. She's got to be your ride or die. I would say that don't look at what won't happen and what you stand to lose. I think a better question is, Sean, is what do I stand to gain? If I do this God's way, if I do this the way that God intends for me to do this, now for the person who might see this and say, well, I'm not a Christian, so how do I do this? I'm going to say, then, what are your values then? What exactly are your values then? You're going to have to find somebody then who matches your value system, whatever that value system may be, so that you guys could be on the same page. But for believers, man, I think that when we, as Christians, we understand covenant, we should understand covenant promises, we should understand the significance of a covenant. Our marriage is not just a piece of paper. Our marriage is not a transaction. Our marriage is a covenant. It is a commitment to the other person to say, I'm yours, you're mine, we're one another's, right? And that's on an equal scale. I'll serve you, you serve me. This is what this is about here. I'll protect you, right? I'll pray for you. That's what I was saying earlier. It's a constant exchange of that. And so what do you have to gain? The stability, someone who's there with you each and every day, a partner, someone to pray with, someone to talk with, someone to strategize with, someone to raise your children with, someone for you to understand what the mission God has for your life and their life together, someone who, you plan a future with, that you raise this family with, and that you see down the line. See, this is what I would like for young people to see today. Can I have grandkids with this woman? Do I see me sitting on the porch with her, and we don't have to speak, but we're feeling each other. We that love that's there. We're out in the back. We don't have to say anything. Can I see myself with someone who I don't have to ask for something, and she doesn't have to ask for something, because we've been together for so long, we understand what it means. I got you already without you even asking. I know what you want. I know what you need. For example, I know if I go out to dinner, it does not matter when we are done with dinner. If my wife is away from the table and dinner is done, my wife drinks coffee. So my wife wants coffee at the end of that. I just get her coffee. I know what kind of coffee she wants. I know how she wants the coffee prepared. So I would say, ask, what do I gain by this? Because there's too much now, which I think has infiltrated and filtered into the minds of young men of what do I have to lose? Now, it is hard out there for y'all. I'm not going to lie. It's hard out there for you guys. But the question becomes is, what do you have to gain? And that would be an upfront thing for me. The other thing that I would say, Sean, is not to marry somebody that you have those doubts about, that you say, I don't see this person as a grandmother. I don't see this person burying my children. I don't see this person being a ride or die for me, having my back, covering me, going down this pathway. But what's to gain, Sean, is so much, man. It's unbelievable. What we have to gain is incredible. What God does in that symbiotic relationship there, man, with between a man and a woman, and how beautiful it could be. The things that they get to see together, somebody you get to explore life with together, share your deepest thoughts, men, deal with your deepest disappointments, enjoy, some of the greatest things. My wife and I went to Maui a year and some change ago. What a beautiful encounter that we had there, man, in Maui for the very first time. That was for our 30th anniversary. We went, what a beautiful thing to be able to go and be in Maui, man, and enjoy being in Maui. What an amazing opportunity it was to see that. We weren't thinking that 30 years down the road, but there it was. We're sitting there enjoying all of the beautiful view, the food, everything. So I would tell a man today, one, stop listening to all of the people who aren't necessarily believers, and listen to the people that are telling you how to successfully be married, because they're putting out content too. Let's talk about the people that are putting out content that are successfully married, that are doing well, that have made it. So for example, I'm not trying to just promote myself here, but there'll be less people who will be interested in me because my story is boring. And there'll be more people who'll be interested in somebody telling somebody, man, I stand to lose everything. My wife, my kids, my house, everything I worked for. I did. Right. And so, but that's not the language of the kingdom. So the kingdom is different, man. We have to get around what God says. What about God's people? Right? What about the people that are doing really, really well and that are making it work, and their marriages are solid, man, their relationships are good, and they've had those long-term things. That's why I appreciate you doing this show here, because we're not hearing this, man, from other people. Other people, man, are listening to everybody else who's telling you you're in danger as a young person, young man getting married. And there are young women who are buying into the same nonsense too. So they're getting the ideal in their head too. Man, listen, if you want to just get out, because they're expecting you to want to get out. These are not the values that come from the scripture. and we need to really return and put our hearts there. And that's the first place I would tell somebody to begin. Find you somebody whose face is constantly in God's, and it's almost going to be impossible for them to make the decisions that you hear that go on in culture and that are norms there.
Yeah, no, I that was wonderful. I appreciate you sharing that. It came to my mind because we're gonna actually, you're hinting at a lot of stuff that we're about to transition into regarding today's culture. But
Yeah.
I think if you've been following long enough here on the channel, there's been conversations on polarity effect, on what you put your focus on, and why love is scary, right? And really embarking on these two things from that conversation is there's a polarity effect, right? There's a focus. You can choose to focus on lack, or you can choose to focus on abundance, right? You can choose to focus on the things that you are
Like that.
going to lose or you are on without. But we recognize that when focusing on those things, nothing actually comes out of it. I mean, we dwell, we might enter into spaces of depression and overwhelming anxiety, a lot of negative effects that happen to the stories we tell ourselves by focusing in so much on that and zooming in. And what happens when you zoom in on something is everything else around it becomes smaller and the problem becomes bigger. What you lack becomes bigger. And so we have a choice to focus either on what we lack or the abundance, right? What we have, what we already carry, where we're going, all those things that actually carry benefit, because now we're dealing with what we have and now we can actually multiply and make something come about it. And so you have a choice in all of that. And so you want to zoom in on what you have, on where you are, and you want to zoom in on the things not just illustriously extremely positive to the point where it's unrealistic, but we want to make it known, just as Demetrius mentioned, right? Like, there are so many people that are putting out content that are beneficial to the ears, that are telling you the positives, the good, healthy things that come out of marriage that Red Pill and all these other types of communities won't tell you. Because as we've shared here, it's a lot of fear there, right? And it's not even necessarily to belittle or dunk on anybody of that community, because that's not our purpose here. But it's important to understand where that context comes from those broken experiences, and those walls that are put up as a result, right? And so
Yeah.
we learn to those responses. So recognize that there's a polarity effect. Recognize that you can pour your focus anywhere, and what has your attention is ultimately what you can become. Okay. Like
Absolutely.
that is something that you want to just consider in this conversation, but also consider too, because your boy is about building biblical, happy, healthy, and whole relationships. And so we got some Bible here to talk a little bit about what you mentioned, right? Because there's a lot of fear that's circulating in 1 John 4, verse 18 through 19. That is a beautiful passage that I have constantly came back to myself, even trying to learn a lot of what others are hearing. And here's the words: there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear has torment. He who fears is not made in perfect love. We love him because he first loved us. This is the precedence of love. Is love scary? Absolutely. I can't tell you what everybody's going to do in every particular situation down the line. I can't do it. You can't do it either, right? We can play this game of what ifs. We can overthink it and try to eliminate every risk in the process of overthinking and every struggle that we have sitting in front of us. But we'll find ourselves doing that to the point of never really embarking on that relationship journey and never really encountering that potential marriage we want, relationships we want, not even just marriage and romance, but even friendships. There's so much that we miss in the process of looking at things in that way. And so because Christ is the perfect love, it does not mean that I won't experience doubt,
Mm-hmm.
but it means that I'm going to be able to fail forward. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to actually encounter those spaces. Yeah, sure, I'm not too sure what this could be. Yes, I'm putting myself out here and it's very vulnerable and it's scary. Yes, I'm opening myself up and somebody has access to me in a way that is a little challenging for me, because I have to open up myself. I have to be vulnerable with where I come from, with where I am, and trusting that this person is going to take care of me gently in this moment. But here's the crazy thing: if they are entering into that space with you, they are doing the same thing too. And so there's two people who are responding in this way. And what gives me the confidence to step into this space is Christ being my foundation, because there's no greater love than the perfect love that he is. And so even though I may open myself up here, and even though it may not be received, it possibly may not be welcomed too lightly, I am confident that not only am I already receiving the love I need, therefore not doing this to get validation from them, but I am also able to move forward despite that person maybe not receiving what I gave them, even though it
Sure.
hurt. Even though it
Sure.
hurt, I can move forward past that. I still have life beyond that. And it doesn't have to then change who I am because this person didn't receive the vulnerability that, you know what, they may not have had the capacity to receive. And it's something to consider. And so
Sure.
this love, man, that we're surrounded by, this is why Christ is such an important foundation around here when it comes to building relationships, because the love that we're all genuinely looking for is only found in him, and we're trying to find it in other people who are incomplete. And that is definitely a stronghold in a lot of those areas. And so if you're somebody who's afraid of relationships, afraid of entering into those spaces, we're not trying to tell you these things to come completely out of that space, because it's understandable, but there is a way to navigate through it to where you are no longer paralyzed by those things, but you're still able to walk into those spaces because of the foundation and value system that you carry, and finding somebody who carries the same thing. Right. And so that is a huge piece. And I just wanted to share that because I think that's very relatable to what everything you shared there, PD. That was beautiful.
Yeah, and let me just say one final thing on that too is this. Great. If you have to go in trying to remove barriers, and that's your whole focus, that's already a sign for you that you're pursuing the wrong person.
Wow. Yeah.
If the whole thing is that you have to spend all of your time removing all of the potential risk that may exist in there, you're already dealing with the wrong person. And you have already bought into an ideal that I have to have an escape clause just in case this doesn't work. So going in, you're already going into that relationship with the deficit. You can't win because you're already climbing out of a hole just to get back to level ground. Because you're already in a deficit because you're thinking this is going to be my only way out of this situation here is to go in with this mentality. It's just not healthy, man. It's not a healthy way to approach the situation.
No, that's good. Yeah. I actually had a conversation with someone a while back who, you kind of get onto these spaces and you start seeing things that you might not like about somebody. And so you just keep going and you're looking for these exit strategies. You come in with exit strategies predetermined, and it keeps you from actually being present in the relationship to actually see
100%.
what's possible, because you're thinking, how can I find a way out the moment I don't see something or the moment I see something I don't like. And so
Yep.
that definitely is present. And I think one of the best ways to move humbly in these spaces is recognizing that they are going to see something in you. Just hang around you long enough. We'll all see that there's something in you that we won't appreciate either. And so it causes us to move in that space with humility, and really get to be in a process and learn somebody, instead of just bailing at first issue and first problem, and creating exit strategies that keep you from actually being present in the relationships you want to build. And so I think that's beautiful. So then let's transition, because this is easy, and into this dating space, man. Welcome to 2023. It's crazy, and it's only going to continue to get crazy.
Yeah.
So much information, as you've alluded to throughout our conversation, so much strongholds, struggles, and fears, and sound bites, 60 seconds, 30 seconds, this, that, and it goes trending. Everybody's with it. It's relatable. And yet there's just such a greater decline in relationships. People are getting married older. Divorce rates are higher. 63% of men are single in our culture today. And so many people might look at that and raise an issue. And if you're around me, you probably might not think it's an issue off rip, but it is something to look at and consider. But nonetheless, there's a lot of that going on. So here's a question that I think I want to present to you, and maybe give maybe 2 or 3 thoughts to it, if you will, man. What do you see is a major issue in today's dating culture, as you've seen it from your position, being a married individual and seeing so much that's on social media?
Okay. I have tremendous amount of respect for women. I have 4 daughters. I have 4 granddaughters and 1 grandson. So my mom has passed on, but I also have 4 sisters. So I'm blessed by women. I promote women. I push women forward, but I'm going to tell a truth from my perspective here. One of the more pronounced issues is that people are having a hard time with women who approach relationships with "I don't need you." That's a hard thing. In the biblical perspective, men and women are supposed to be together. Women should need men, men should need women. But in our culture, it is, "I don't need you. I got my own stuff. I could do for myself." And here's what I don't think a lot of women grasp when it comes to dealing with men on this particular subject. Okay, Sean, men are wired to be needed. Watch this. I didn't say needy. Men are wired to be needed. And if I don't see that you need me, then how do I fit into your life? How, where, if you don't need anything from me, and you're like, "Well, I gotta do my own thing." Well, what do you need from me? Because you're in essence telling me that how I am built, how God made me, how God put me together, my masculinity, my drive to my innate ability to be a leader, my innate ability to take the lead, my innate nature to protect this home, to provide in this home, to give direction to children, to perhaps even give direction to you in these particular instances. All of these things, when you tell me that you don't need anything from me, you don't need a man, it's just a part of, "Hey, I'm doing what I do." If you feel like that's one of the first things I would tell you, man, is that you're turning men off from this ideal of where do I fit? Then men don't know where they fit in your life because you just told them that you don't need them. But we need to be needed. We need to have those needs. I can change my own light bulb. Men want to change your light bulbs.
Yeah.
Men want to change your light bulbs. Men want to be the one to take your trash out. Men want to be the ones to fix your. It's good that you can fix your own car. It's good that you can change the headlamp on your car. It's good that you can jack up your car and change your tire. I'm happy with that because if I'm out of town, then I at least know. That you got it. But to tell me that you don't need me when I'm around for things like that, then I don't really see where I fit into you. What do you need a man for? What do you need a man for? So this ideal of "I don't need a man" is probably one of the larger challenges and struggles that I see. The second struggle, you said, give you 2 or 3 examples. The second struggle that I see is this rating system. I think this is probably the worst thing ever that has taken place in this current culture. This 1 through 10, right? Rating system that everybody has. He's a 10 or he's a 5 or he's this or he's that. And it's based on income. It's based on looks, right? It's based on all these other outside extra things that have nothing to do with who the man is personally. Who is this man? What is he made up of? I think that there are a lot of women who are skipping over really good men because they have put them in a numerical order that culture has told them this is who you need to be with. And I'm thinking to myself, so if you get with the 10, but he's abusive, he's going to beat you in your head, he's going to be cheating on you the whole time, but he's got a nice car, a couple of nice cars, a lot of money in the bank, some 401k, and he could take you wherever he wants to take you, or you want to go, he can get your hair and your nails done and buy you Fendi bags and whatever else you need to have or whatever, whatnot, but he's not faithful to you, but he's a 10. This does not make any sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me to put a man in there because if I was going to say a man was a 10 from my perspective, looking at it just as a man. I'm going to say a man of character, a man of integrity, a man of faith, right? A man who has a steady job, a man who comes home every night and knows how to love on his wife. I'm not even talking about in an intimate way. I'm talking about loving on his wife, but he know how to handle that piece too, right? A man who understands what it means to be neighborly, a man who understands what it means to be in his community, right? An outstanding community person. He's involved perhaps even in his community, but more importantly, he's involved in his children's lives. He takes time with them. He's the one who's willing to help put them to bed, read stories to them, make sure their homework is done, showing up at their soccer games, gymnastics, their football games, all this other kind of good stuff. He don't even have to be coaching. He just has to be present, making sure that he gets them there, cutting off work time to make sure that when his kids say that they have an activity that he's like, hey, can't make that meeting tonight, but you guys send me the notes or whatnot, right? He's there. He's available. He's emotionally available, mentally available, physically available, spiritually available. That's a 10. That brother's probably a 12 if you ask me. He might be 100. But we got women who don't want that. They're looking for a man who's got X, Y, and Z figures and all this other kind of good stuff because it's a status. You look a certain kind of way, but he's not good to you. Don't even see you. You're invisible to him unless you're in the bed. And this is where the problem is. And even when you're in the bed, you're still invisible to him because he's not thinking about you. He's thinking about what he has to do after he does this. This is momentary. This is just something that's getting a pressure or stress off of him. So he's moving on from you. So these are the kind of things that I'm hearing from women today. This is what they want. They don't want a good man. They just want a man who's, quote, in a numbered category. Mm-hmm. So that would be the second thing that I think. The third thing that I would say to you today is it's hard for a man to go on a date with a woman because you and I have discussed this here more recently, and it's been one of the more popular things. This ridiculous list of where women will and will not go to eat.
Yeah, the date list.
You're already creating a barrier to the exploration phase of going out and getting to know who somebody is. So you're putting all this pressure on this man to have this financial wherewithal to be able to take you to some place that's just really exploratory. Those dates, to be quite honest with you, at those really expensive places, unless this dude is independently rich and that's who you hang out with, then guess what? Those dates are supposed to be special dates. That's anniversary dates where you go spend $200 on a plate, right? And you enjoy something at that level. That's anniversary. That's not exploratory dates, again, unless you have found somebody who's independently wealthy like that. Now, and here's my thing. Here's my thing, Sean. If you find somebody who's independently wealthy like that, and that's what your aim is, then why are you even talking to guys? Why are you even entertaining guys who you already know don't match that and then dare them to take you to Cheesecake Factory? This doesn't even make sense to me. You meet a guy and you see him roll out the parking lot. Maybe he has a nice little Lexus or a BMW, maybe a 3 Series BMW though. He doesn't have the 5 or the 7. Right. And so he's got a little 3 Series. You can get a little 3 Series for about 33, 35,000 or whatever, whatnot. Right. So maybe that's what he's rolling. So, you're thinking, well, he might have a little something. But again, most of the guys who are rolling like that probably aren't eating that Cheesecake Factory. Okay. So here where I live, they might be eating at Eddie V's. That's where they go. My nephew works at one of the most expensive restaurants here in Scottsdale, Arizona. He works there. He makes more money than most people I know. He's a server. You know why? Because people like Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks, all these kind of people, the really wealthy people, that's where they eat, Sean. That's where they go to have their regular meals. You don't see them at Cheesecake Factory. But so if you're just meeting a guy, you can't have an expectation of him to take you to the Roaring Fork. All the time, the Roaring Fork costs you all kinds of money. I've been married for 31 years. I just took my wife there. Like, 2 months ago. Just took my wife there 2 months ago. And when I walked in, there's all kinds of athletes there, former athletes there, or whatever, whatnot, because that's where they eat. So for somebody to expect that, you need to date up in that. But if you want to get to know somebody, you can't come with all these. You can't take me to Cheesecake Factory type of stuff. Should you expect him to be a gentleman to open your door? I still open my wife's door, open and close it, even just getting out of my garage. Open the door for her and close the door for her wherever we go. I still do it. That's just being a gentleman, right? But we have way too many barriers, man, for a guy to have to think about. He can't even get to know you. You got way too many boundaries and too many expectations for him. He doesn't even get a chance to know who you are, and most importantly, you're not getting a chance to know who he is. So he can't even show you how decent of a man he is because you're worried about his pocketbook and where he took you to eat. That doesn't make sense. What happened to what happened to even Sean, the again, that's why it's so different. The romantic stuff, man, that people do. My wife and I like to go on the beach when we go to California, man, and sit out at this place. It's raggedy, but it's out on the water and it's beautiful. And that's our little spot, man, when we go to San Diego to eat, because it's right on the water. This is no fancy place, but it's views everywhere. It looks like a shack sitting out on top of the water, but it's views everywhere. It's beautiful. But here we got situation with, you can't take me there. Well, we're not even giving a man a chance, Sean, to show you who he is. His heart is what you should be after. God even says, watch this. God is even wise enough that when he was choosing a king in David, the prophet missed it, because the prophet did like most people and looked with his natural eyes and saw David's brother and said, he must be the one because he looks like a king. And God said, hold up for a second, time out. I don't look at people's outward appearance. I look at the heart. Now you have to understand that when God was talking about heart, he wasn't talking about your beating heart. He was talking about your mind, your will, your emotions. This person, who is he made up of? We're not even giving a man an opportunity to do that. So he's like, I'm good. So guess what? He's now resorting to, I'll just use you because I don't see a way forward with you, because you've already determined who I am. So if anything does happen, it's going to be me using you, because I'm not going to trust you, because the moment I stop doing what I do or what I did right now, it's not going to be enough for you. So I don't want to commit to you. I'm not going to commit to you. A man sees, what am I committing to? Somebody who's going to constantly be pressuring me for the house you live in, for the car that we drive, and for where we do and don't go on vacation, whatever the scenario may be. I mean, man, I have to be honest with you. How many people do we know, Sean, every day in 2-income households that are even making $100,000? In 2-income households. But you don't even want to give this guy an opportunity? Okay, so he makes $55,000 a year, but he's got savings account, 401k, a decent car, dresses well, treats you well, treats other people well, so on and so forth, respectable, shares your same value system. He's not good enough because he eats at Cheesecake Factory? That's where he took you on a date? You're missing it by a mile. Yeah. By a mile. So anyway, I can go on and on about that. I know you got more questions.
I love it. I think you hit a lot of that. So my next question, man, would be, well, I want to circle back to you mentioning kind of the beginning of the what I call the boss mentality that women have carried, right? The independence, right? INDEPENDENT. Do you know what that means, right? They carry a lot of that, right? And I guess it's had a way of infiltrating into that space. What do you accredit that to? Where does that come from, do you think? For women who come through like that?
Feminism. the rise of feminism. And feminism, unfortunately, has its roots now tangled up with a lot of liberal thoughts and insights that unfortunately are misplaced. And again, we have now tried to eliminate the purpose of a man. I'm a boss B. No, what? No, first of all, people that are, watch this. And man, you can look this up. You can look this up on LinkedIn. You can look this up on any other real professional site, Alignable. You can look at any of these professional, and the women that are real bosses, they're not telling you they're a boss. Man, I promise you, they don't even use that kind of terminology. That right there just lets me know you're not a boss. Just because you own a little business or whatever, whatnot, good for you. Good for you. Congratulations for you. We're happy for you. We will clap for you. I'm for you with that. And I really mean that. I'm totally for you with that. But that don't make you a boss, because people that are really bosses, they move quietly because they don't have to announce it. You know it when you see it. See, this is different. So this feminism has come in and said, I'm this, I'm that. Now, to be fair to women, there has been decades of women who have been minimized, broke down, marginalized, abused, mishandled, unseen, turned away from, paid lower wages, all this other kind of stuff. That one lady, Curly Things, she's a little raunchy, but she's got some good stuff to say regarding this whole thing right here, where I think it's important to not to try to compete with men in certain areas, in certain aspects. Just make your way. Sis, make your way in what you do, and find your own path. Do the stuff that you need to do to build your own success or whatever, whatnot. But on your way, you don't have to talk about being a boss. Excuse me. Just continue to do what you do. Build your empire, whatever that is, whether it's makeup, hair, nails, finances, whatever it is, do what you do. And if that means that you empower other women on your way up, if you won't be a boss, empower some other women on your way up. Then you being a boss. Don't, and because you're spending too much time talking about men. But if you were really bossing, you be just working, you just be building what you building. You be putting together your organization, doing what you're doing. Instead, you spending time talking about men and pay wage differences. It's been that way for hundreds of years. So the rise of that is we need to be in charge. We need to this. And again, granted, I will say, I understand a large part of why feminism arose and how it came, but it's the origins of feminism, man, are rooted in the wrong places. It's coming from the wrong places. The ideals are coming from the wrong places. Again, this ideal of I don't need a man. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. There's some things that you're doing, sis, that you're probably forcing yourself to do. That's a man's job. That's a man's function. You're doing it because you're forcing yourself to do it. So for example, I'll say this. This idea of I'll just have my own family without a man. I want you to think about this for just a second. I'm going to say this really slow. This idea, Shana, I don't need a man. Probably the worst idea ever. Because then when a woman says, well, I'm going to have a family, but I'm going to do it without a man. Guess what, sis? The male component must still be in the equation for you to be able to have a baby, whether you do it from a surrogate or whether you do it from a insemination, it still's got to be sperm.
Yeah.
That comes from a man, because two women can't make a baby.
Can't do it.
So this idea, Sean, of I don't need a man, yes, there are things you need a man for. Now, granted, somebody's going to see this and say, well, that's the point. I just don't need them to be around. I just need a sperm. No, what you're trying to do is dismiss us as a whole. And if you look at creation from the Christian worldview, you can't do away with men, nor can men do away with women. If men want to have a family, if two men say they want to have a kid, it can't happen between them two, because he can't get pregnant. He has no womb. He has no ovaries. You got to have a woman.
Yeah.
Until we come back together, Sean, and say, this is who I need. And he says, this is who I need. And we get away from that and we get back to God's design, then we'll have a whole struggle here. But all we're doing is continually to fight the design. We're fighting the design, Sean. The design is for us to come together and to be healthy. And watch this, to understand who she is as a female. The scripture tells us that. It says, husbands, dwell with your wife according to knowledge, right? And for females then to understand who a man is and what his purpose and his function is. Everybody likes to talk about the Proverbs 31 woman, but the Proverbs 31 woman, I have to tell you, if you really pause and really dig into that text and start to unpack it, it says that because of her, that her husband
is known.
Man, somebody better come get me. It says her husband is well known because of her. So if you're going to tell me that you're going to be a boss, why don't you pick up Proverbs 31 woman and check her out, because she was handy with the cloth. She was handy with her work every day. She was handy with all these things. And her husband was a beneficiary of that. Some of y'all want to be a boss without your husband getting any recognition whatsoever. She didn't have any problem having her husband be known at the gates where all the other people were making exchanges because of who she was. And this is where we get in trouble, this idea of this is all me. This is all me. No, well then why are you trying to get married? If it goes back to your initial question, if you want to be in a relationship, then you got to be in a relationship, and it won't be about you. It'll be about us. It'll be about us. And before somebody says this, because I know that they will, somebody's going to post this down somewhere in your notes, somewhere in there. Men need to do the same thing too. See, sis, this is what the problem is. You're not listening. First of all, we're talking about men and their difficulties to challenges of going into these scenarios and situations. Of course, men need to, but we're not talking about that. This is what we're talking about. So let's keep context. Let's keep text in context here and keep the whole thing in context of what we're having a conversation about. What we're talking about is how men and women move together, and what are some of the barriers, and where did this ideal come from? I'm a boss. This again is a turn off to men. Ooh, I got to say this to you. I don't even know if you're going to ask this, but let me know, and then I'll shut up and I'll rant on it in a minute.
No, drop it all right now.
We do not care how much money you make. I just want you to know that. Okay. With one caveat, a man of God who knows who he is and understands his purpose in life will not care how much money you make. We're not intimidated by that. You can make all the money you want to make. You can, a real man, he's like, hey, listen, you can make more money than him as far as he's concerned. My question is do you need him, and does he feel that when he's in a relationship with you? Because if you don't need him, then he's not going to be connected to that relationship. And it won't be because y'all be like, yeah, girl, I was making he intimidated by me when I walk in the room. No, he wasn't. He just felt like you didn't need him. So if you don't need him, then he's going to kick rocks. It's not about the money that you make. It's do you need him in your life? And if he doesn't sense that, he's going to move on. Y'all be like, he was intimidated by me and how I moved through this. No, we never are. We never are. We never are. I can't stress that enough. We never are. As a matter of fact, we're going to cheer you on. Do what you do. We'll be your biggest cheerleader. Mm-hmm. We'll even let you get the spotlight. We'll let you get the spotlight. We'll be like, hey, do your thing. Former NFL player, cornerback Nnamdi Asomugha. His wife is Kerry Washington. You'll ever see Nnamdi in any of her Instagram posts or any of that stuff. He like, they did an interview several years ago. He was like, man, that's my wife, Shine. See, y'all got it wrong. You got it wrong. We're not worried about that. We're not thinking about those kind of things. That's what happens. He's like, no, you do you. Shine. Get out there and shine. I got you. Why? Because that brother knows Kerry needs me. So he's not worried about how Kerry shines in public. Because at home, he understands he's needed. So he understands his greatest role, watch this, is not in public facing, but in private practice. Y'all gonna make me, let me get off of here. Dude, I'm just telling you, that's what it is, man. So we're not afraid of you being a boss. Joyce Meyer, man. Everybody was like, Joyce Meyer husband, quiet, meek guy. Joyce Meyer traveling all over the world on stages speaking. That brother ain't a bit more thinking about being up on a stage, man. And she constantly refers to him, constantly. But God is shining a light through her on hundreds of thousands, millions of people, books, stages, speaking engagements, all this other kind of stuff. You'll never see, he's never come out and been like, well, you know, Joyce just really should mention me more and I should be here. And it was very difficult to see her shine up there. And I just thought she should be in the kitchen pregnant and barefoot and burying my children and whatnot, letting me go out and do. No, he's never once made mention of that. He's happy doing what he does. That brother's like, man, that's what Joyce doing. I'm over here fishing. Yeah. See, it's all backwards, Sean. The messaging has all been backwards because culture has infiltrated kingdom and has decided to change rules. And it said, this is how this should go down. But if we go back to the original design and we stop fighting it, we will see, Sean, what God has intended for us. And it's a beautiful thing, man, between husbands and wives, man, when they're not competing, but completing one another through him walking in his masculinity and her in her femininity. Those two things were meant to move like a left foot and a right foot, a left foot and a right foot, a left foot to walk. It brings balance to the rest of their life when they're moving in the thing that God has blessed them with. Femininity and masculinity are gifts from God. And we're trying to distort them by trying to turn them into numbers, right? And values. He's a high value man. He's a low value man. She's a high value. No, we've distorted the gifts that God has blessed us with innately and put in us. Girl, go out there and do what you do. Listen, my wife is a medical professional. She's killing it. She's being in articles, do all kinds of stuff. You know, I go somewhere with her and people start talking to her. You know what I do? I disappear. She's always like, you need to come. I disappear. I don't need to be in all of that. So don't miss it. Anyway, let me leave that alone.
I love it.
We're not intimidated, sis, by your success. We'll be your biggest supporters. You just can't act like you don't need us.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot of self-made perspectives. You also consider the context that you mentioned, feminism, the rise of feminism. I don't need a man, how all that's infiltrated. I've also shared too, man, how, you know, you consider even things smaller like background homes and all that kind of stuff that we didn't touch, but is still present. The missing father in the home, and they witnessed mom do a lot. So they were like, hey, I guess this is it. This is how I'm supposed to operate. And you see all of that too, man. And I think what you point out was beautiful. Just the simple fact that we are interested in growing with you. You get what I'm saying? Like, and so there that points to a lot of even hidden expectations that you shared in that too. This idea that men have to have it all put together. You shared something so beautiful in our conversation yesterday about the perspective of I'll tag along with somebody who's done all the growth and all the work already. I'll just add my name to the project, and I'll just be there. And even though you're elevating, I know I'll elevate too, but that means I don't have to do anything. I don't have to partake in it. I don't have to pour into that equity to put that there. And it also shares and shines a pretty big light. I'm not necessarily a huge now I won't say fan, but I'm not too aware of Candace Owens. I've seen some of her thoughts on things, and I like it. I think a lot of what she shares is so interesting and obviously triggering to so many in culture. But this perspective of, man, no, I just need to get to that high. I need to go out and get to that new peak. I'm out here chasing. I'm tired of the same old watering and mundane and actually doing the day to day. I need to go get that new spike. And how I do that is by getting something better, because there's something better out there. There's always something better out there. But I remember a wonderful, dare I say, Bishop in J. Cole, who said, you are never going to be happy until you love yours. And there's
Yeah.
something to be said about that. And there's so many women who kind of navigate in that space where they're like, man, no, there's gotta be something better out there. And how I put it to others is, man, like, you just don't, it's not that the grass is always greener on the other side. It's green where you water it. And I think Candace put that so beautifully in there too. The watering, the mundane, the day to day, that's where the beauty is actually sticking into the consistency of things and not running to the new high, wherever that high may be for you, in connections and relationships. And so I think there's a lot of process that's missing. People aren't willing to invest. I think if you ask me, there are people who aren't willing to find a reason to invest into somebody. Everything has to happen right now. Right. I need to have this labeling. I need to have the relationship. I need to have the title. I need to have all that right now. Right. I don't want to build anything. I don't want to invest into anything. I don't want to actually build and process. I don't want to get to know you to actually understand if this is something that we really want to create for the long term. And then we jump to a lot of the fears, right? It's a lot of the stories that we tell ourselves and the things that we hear from social media. Man, she's not real interested because she does this, this, and this. And there's a lack of understanding on just perspective and context, being curious enough to wonder, ask questions. There's a lack of all of that, man, and everybody's jumping to extremes. And I see so much of that even in today's culture. And then, of course, outside of the expectations, for me, it would be the unwillingness to heal properly. We would rather engage in another romantic relationship instead of being single and learning how to love ourselves, trust ourselves, and be healed again to come into a place complete. So we would rather be felt than to feel our emotions and work through those processes. And there's a lot of understanding from that in an empathetic way. However, we also know that that's just massaging the wound. It's not actually doing the healing. And so for me, that's why a lot of the message is the singleness is necessary. We don't like it. Or there's a lot of stereotypical perspectives on singleness for people. And maybe you're not even somebody who doesn't enjoy singleness, but you're just kind of coasting through it, right? You're single, you admit you're single, I'm cool, but you're also not growing and putting in work in areas that could actually propel you to be prepared for the relationship you're looking for. And this is why you're kind of wondering, well, where is the one? Well, you're waiting on you, because you haven't done the work yet. You haven't really actually invested and put in time to actually learn how your own insecurities could actually ruin the relationship you're actually looking for. And you haven't really looked into those things to actually see what is necessary for me to look at, investigate, and journey through, and recognize that it's a process, and healing is in milestones. You think you have to be all put together before you get into a relationship, because that's never been my message. What I'm telling you is that you need to be willing to investigate and progress. So there's milestones to this. And then when you get to that level where you say, now I have the capacity to invest in somebody again, I have the capacity to walk and journey with somebody again, to learn someone again, to commit to understanding someone again, that's where that commitment, that space is opened up for. But we don't do the proper work because we just don't like what we see. And at some point we got to be willing to sit down and look at ourselves before we just start telling everybody that the dating pool is full of piss that we're actually participating in. We gotta be willing to look at ourselves in some kind of capacity. And so I love a lot of what you said there. I think that's beautiful.
Let me share some things real quick. I promise I'll do it with brevity. Invest. Mm-hmm. You talked about investing. So let me touch on that really quick. Investing is a game of patience. It's also an expectation that in the patience that I will get an ROI, a return on my investment. Investment is a game of patience, not a game of hurry. Investment typically is long-term and not short-term. When we invest, we don't look for short-term returns. We wait for it to mature. That's even investment language. We wait for that investment to mature and to become something. The other thing you may mention of is build. To build, you have to have vision. You have to be able to see the house that you're in, the house that I'm in. Somebody saw it, sat down, put it on paper, built out the rooms, did everything, how it was going to be, then said, now I'm going to go buy some land, and then I'm going to build what I see. You have to see it first and then walk it out. You build it here, and then you go and you do the investment part to see it. A lot of people, Sean, will look at my 31 years and they will think to themselves, I want that. But they don't want investment and they don't want building. So that's what I was trying to explain to you earlier. It's none of the stuff that people think that it is. Oh, I'll just get married and we do, and it'll be great. No. One of the first things I told my son-in-law, my newest son-in-law, when he came and here he walked in this house and he was like, whoa, this, that, and other. And I told him, I said, if I give you this property, it would crush you because you haven't built yourself up to be able to handle what it costs to be here. You see, his eyes could see something. And instead of him saying, hey, how do I enter into a process to where I can get this one day? No, he was like, ooh, I wish I had this, without understanding the weight of it. It would crush him because he hasn't put in the time. He doesn't have the 2x4s and the cement and the rebar and all this other kind of stuff that he's built under it to handle the weight of it, Sean. He can't handle the weight of it. It would be too heavy. So for a moment he would enjoy it, and then it would become a burden because there's been no investment and no building. That's why you just can't give somebody a relationship. It has to be invested in and it has to be built in. Now, the last thing you said was a process. Everybody wants to hop out of a process. But what you don't understand about process is this. Process has within it staying power. So when I stay in a process, I am building the stamina to go further. Process does that for me, not gifting. So sometimes, watch this. And I'm going to say this, and I say this respectfully to people. Some people can't be in a relationship with somebody who's completed process because they won't be able to handle that because they're behind in that scenario and situation. They're behind in that. They can't handle somebody who's already gone through process because they haven't done it. So being in that space, being in that place is unfamiliar to them because they've made no investment, they've built nothing, and they hopped out of process too soon. So when that other person gets there and they show up in their lives, they say they want this, but they don't really want that because this person has already done a lot of that work. They've invested in themselves. They've built a life that they're happy with and they can live in, and that they completed some processes. So they're in another place. And some people, as you were alluding to my conversation with you yesterday, people will try to latch onto that and say, well, I don't have to grow with this person grows. Well, I'm going to tell you what will happen is that person will start to do this, and you'll start to feel like this person doesn't care about you and they're just walking away from you. No, you are refusing to continue to move alongside and develop in your own process with this person. And so it feels difficult for you because this person has already started moving forward in that area of their lives. And so I think it's really important. And I'll say this lastly, stop wishing you had somebody else's relationship and pointing to somebody else's relationship because you don't know the difficulty and the level of challenge and process that they went through, Sean, in order to achieve what they have. You're looking at end results. You're not looking at beginnings and middles. You're looking at the end. And most people don't want to deal with the middle and the beginning. They just want the end. And that right there is a cheap way to decide that you want to go into something because you haven't paid enough price to be able to have what you're looking at. You haven't paid the price for that. True story.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's beautiful stuff. I think I really hope a lot of people are getting a lot of good stuff out of this just to navigate through your relationships in a more expanded manner. Because it's just more to it than I think your eyes are willing to see or even acknowledge from social media and everything that's trending. Because what you see is not what you're going to get. And it's a whole different method and way of handling it. So I think this is a good place. This next question I think is a good place to kind of wrap up here. What what is the encouragement? What is the encouragement that you would give to others who are in a dating process, who are looking to enter into a dating process and get into a place of marriage? You can answer it in that way, or you can also consider, if you were in a similar position, maybe that'll be helpful too. If you were in today's dating culture, how would you navigate through it?
Yeah. So, again, thank you. Really good question. So I would say that this applies no matter who you are across the board. First and foremost, I'm going to make sure that I know who I am. I'm going to be very clear on my identity as a person, right? I'm going to have a really good grasp, Sean, on where I want to go in life, right? So who I am is going to be solid. Where I want to go is going to be solid, right? And how I envision my future with somebody is also going to be solid. And so my encouragement would be if you have those three things in place, you're going to do well because that includes your value system, right? That includes how you spend money, how you invest money, right? Where you spend your time, who you spend your time with. Oftentimes people will ask me, because I am a certified life coach, people will ask me, like, how do you know that this is the right decision for you to make and whatnot? Well, a lot of my decisions don't have to come through me spending multiple days in prayer. A lot of my decisions come from understanding who I am. And because I understand who I am, when something comes to me, Sean, that is not in line with who I am, I automatically know this is not for me. That's typical for me. So my encouragement would be for people is to know those things, who you are, right? Identity, understand where you want to go in your life. If you want to achieve something, understand that you're on the track to achieve that. This is the other thing that I would tell you. If you meet somebody and you feel like this person matches you, you guys, you're attracted to each other, spiritually speaking, you're compatible, right? You have this thing vibing and jiving with you. Here's the thing, and I told this to all of my children. Only one of them is not married. She gets married a year from now in October. August, I'm sorry. Let me say this to you. I said this to them, and I'll say this to everyone. Make sure that where you're going, you don't have to get off of that track to accommodate the other person. Because if you two say we're good, then you have to have enough capacity in your life to accommodate the other person's dreams. This is to me, this is one of the bigger pieces, man, is when somebody has the ability, Sean, to be able to accommodate the other person's dreams while doing theirs on both sides. If you don't have that, and you got to tell this person, I'm gonna need you to get off of your track to get on my track. No. I think this is the wrong thing. I think that when two people meet and they're going somewhere, you should have enough in you to say, what are your dreams? How can I support that? And they vice versa. What are your dreams? How can I support that in you? When we have that, Sean, we really have something special. We really have something that's important. My wife let me do ministry. When I say let me, she understood what I was built for. So I did ministry while I supported my wife medically, right? And the stuff that she needed to do. We did both of those things side by side while raising our children, while going to soccer games, dance recitals, right? Kindergarten plays, high school plays, running track, soccer games. We did all of it. The other daughters of church, we did all of it. We were at football games, didn't even have a son on the football team, but she was out there, hey, bust it, bust it, bust it. We was out there doing this. We were there in the stands. You have to not try to make the person quit who they are to fit into your life. If you have to do that, you're probably in the wrong space. So my encouragement is know who you are, let the other person be who they are, and let your value systems and your shared experiences to build something together be the thing that leads you and guides you. And don't neglect the Holy Spirit, I should say. Don't neglect the Holy Spirit's tug on you when you feel like this isn't right, and you just be like, let me ask my other friend to see what they got to say about this. When the Spirit of God is dealing with your heart and telling you this is the wrong thing, I think it's time to let that go. I think it's a good place to let that go, because too many people ignore this unction that comes from the Holy Spirit, who starts to deal with them, man, and starts to deal with their heart. And they go, yeah, but I really like this person. It doesn't matter if you really like this person. Do you have that check in your spirit, man, that's telling you this is not the right thing for you? Does it line up too with, again, who you are, where you want to go, right? What your value system is, right? Your dreams, your vision. Do you have the capacity to have somebody else in your space that can do what they do and you do what you do, but you guys support each other? And the ultimate end is when we've accomplished this, then we understand that what we share together is still the most important thing. But trying to change somebody to come over to your side is probably one of the worst things that people can do. That's always never ended well for people, even if it lasts for a decade. I've watched people come to me in counsel and say, 10 years with them, but I got tired of not doing what I wanted to do. That's what I was doing when I first met them, and I stopped doing it for them. And the more I kept hearing that, Sean, the more I started saying to myself, this is a big deal, and too many people are jumping off of the trajectory that they have for their lives and not being supported in that to support the other person's dreams and visions. And man, when they never return to it, it becomes problematic.
Wow. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I lied. Here's one more question. And then this will actually close it. We've talked previously on your being married at young age. What would you say to somebody who is genuinely wanting to get married sooner rather than later? Maybe they're feeling like they're running out of time. Maybe they're young and want to experience it while they're young. What is some words of wisdom that you could share there?
Yeah, good question. My youngest daughter is going to be the youngest one of all my kids to get married at the very young age of 23. But I did. I got married at 22. So the first thing that I would say to them is ask yourself, what is the purpose of marriage? Do you understand the purpose of being married? One of the things that we do is oftentimes we have appetites for things, Sean, and we don't understand the purpose of the appetite. It's important for us to understand the reason we have the appetite for the thing that we're longing for. A lot of that will clear up whether we should pursue it or not. So that's the first thing I would tell you. The second thing that I would tell you is who modeled a good marriage for you? That's the second thing that I would ask is who has modeled a good marriage for you? The third thing that I would say to them is, what makes you believe that you are, watch this, not going to be a good spouse, but that you are already spouse material? That's the first thing. So that'd be the third thing that I would ask. And then finally, I would say to them, if you're doing any of this out of desperation, the feeling of loneliness, the feeling of wanting to be loved exclusively and stuff like that, you might find yourself in a position where you're about to make the biggest mistake of your life and put yourself in the greatest deficit that you've ever been in your life. And you want to talk about wounds and have a wound, man, that is so gaping, that is so wide, that it might require multiple spiritual, physical, emotional surgeries over the years, because not understanding what it means to be married, especially early, not understanding what it means, man, can really set you back for years, especially if you start to put kids into that mix. Because I'm going to tell you, you and that spouse wouldn't pay the price. Your kids would. Your kids will be the one to pay the price for you jumping into that relationship early and having babies. And then those babies are without two parents committed and connected to one another. So before you get married, know the reason for marriage. Because if they think that it is just sex, you cannot build a marriage on sex. There's got to be dreams and visions and shared experiences, shared values, shared faith, right? There's got to be a vision for the future. Again, when you look at this person, do you say, this is who I want to grow old with? This is what I see in them. This is a person I want to sit on a rocking chair with. This is a person I want to remove my teeth at dinner, right? Or bring me my teeth for dinner. Can you see that and understand it? And lastly, I would say, what's the hurry? Because the weight of carrying the responsibility of another person, their past, their emotions, their wants and needs, right? Their difficulties, their moods on both sides, right? I'm talking on both sides when I say this, on both, the weight of that, the weight of a home, the weight of the financial burden, insurances, right? Cars, vehicles, all the maintenance on these things, the things that you need to do, saving, planning, all this other kind of good stuff. That's not about sex. That's about two people saying, this is the person who I want to share all of this with in my life. I want to share all of this with this person in my life. If you have not come to that conclusion and you're just like, I love her, I love him, and he fine and she fine, whatever, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. And that person at some point might become incapacitated. Are you still in it to win it? They might lose a limb, an eye, a leg. They might lose their hearing. They just might. I know a man who is in a wheelchair, only has movement in his neck. His wife became his full-time caregiver. Full-time. She didn't sign up for that, because you see their wedding pictures on their wall. He's big, strapping guy, doing what he's doing, so on and so forth. But for 26 years now, he's been in that wheelchair. So she could have walked away and been like, I ain't signed up for that. Understand marriage. What is it really? Is the question that I would ask a young person who says, I want to do this right now. I almost get the sense a little bit, Grape, and I don't want to pee on anybody's campfire, that you feel like you're missing something, that you can't wait to get into. And I think that it's a mistake, because I think you need to have a grasp on it. Now, granted, there are going to be some things you discover along the way, but it's kind of like the kid who can't wait to drive. There's a reason that they say you get a permit before you even get a full license. There's a reason why they say, and you can use your permit with somebody who's a full licensed driver in the car, because even though you can do it, you still need mentorship while you're learning it. And then there's still time that's necessary for it. So that's what I would say. I would also tell this person, find somebody who is married and is healthy and you see good fruit, and hang out with this person and ask them questions. Ask them questions. The best thing a young person can do for me, if they wanted to find out how to be in a marriage, the best thing that I could do for a young person is to invite them into my house, let them sit with me, and watch me move with my wife. The best thing. Then they could make a decision. This is what I want to do. That's the best thing. Find somebody who's doing it and then copy that. But ask yourself, what is my rush? Especially if you're young. What is my rush to jump into this relationship? And somebody, I want to have kids early. Okay, that's cool. But you got to have somebody who wants, one, the same thing you do and have the same desires that you do for that long-term part of that relationship too. And oftentimes, those two desires I found, Sean, don't match. You see them on the TV shows. You see them now. They're trying to match people blindly. They're trying to match people behind walls. They're trying to match people on islands. They're trying to match people from picking from 72 people that you all get to kiss and do all kinds of stuff with. And then you come over here and you like, everybody's like, yeah, just pick this one person out of these final three. What are we doing? What are we doing? You find somebody who's modeling it for you and see it, and then you should just pick their brain. Man, what did you do here? What did you do there? When did you know? How did you know it was her? How did you know it was him? What have been your biggest challenges? What have you had to overcome? What were the obstacles that almost broke you up? What were the things that were a struggle for you on this? When Sean, when those questions aren't even posed and they aren't even asked, we're behind the 8 ball, because we're looking at that field again with the sunflowers, the lilies, the Dalmatian dog, and the sun setting in the back. And that's a moment. That's not a marriage. That's just a moment. It's not a marriage.
Demetrius Colbert, ladies and gentlemen, life coach, pastor, and tells it all. And man, let me know where you can be found on platforms, all those things.
A couple of different places. So you can catch me at DemetriusColbert.com. You can catch me there. You can catch me at The Dig. That's with 2 G's, thedigg.org. That's most of my ministry stuff there, content, like some blogs, different things along those lines, some teaching stuff. My YouTube channel is connected to that. And you can catch me on TikTok as well. You can go to TikTok at Demetrius.Colbert. There, I post something on there probably every day, every other day. On there, you can catch me on any of those platforms. And DemetriusColbert.com is for coaching, and the dig.org is for ministry. TikTok, that's just you saying, what does he ramble about today? And go from there.
Yeah, I love it. And you guys can also catch us weekly over on a maverick.tv, which is where we partner together and do weekly Bible studies. All right. So that will also be in the description below for you guys to check out. It is a free 3-day free trial. After that, it's $9.99 a month for all you gamers and looking for some community. All those things are so much available there. You'll get way more than you probably would or should for $9.99 a month. Let's just say
So
that.
true. Yeah. So true.
So much there. So definitely hang out with us and connect with us there. Demetrius, thank you so much, man, for your time and your words. Definitely edifying.
Well, Sean, thank you for having me, man. It's an honor, and I appreciate you letting me come on here and ramble.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast and interview. If you like this content, be sure to subscribe and check out everything else that we got going on here, dedicated to building happy, healthy, whole, and biblical relationships. I'll see you over there.